The Devil Cuts the Deck, Part 3. Chapter 18, The Dealer's Fall. The burned room shimmered with breathless tension. Two decks floated in opposite corners. One pulsing faint red, Rhea's. The other exhaling slow black smoke, Sam's. Each card hovered like a heartbeat suspended mid-throb. Between them, Clara. Kneeling on the floor. Hands over her ears. Whispers from both decks worming through her thoughts. Rhea clenched her jaw. Let her go. Sam stood calmly. She chose. She remembered me. She drew you by accident. That doesn't matter, he said. You should know that by now. He gestured to the floating cards. Once a name's in the spread, the game deals forward. The mirror behind Sam cracked further, its spiral widening. The smell of ash thickened. A voice began to echo softly from it. Not the dealer. Not the devil. A crowd. Voices murmuring from behind glass. Draw. Counter. Cut. Fall. It was the sound of former players. Of lost readers. Of all the voices consumed by the spread. Rhea took a deep breath and stepped forward. Her deck hovered in front of her, shuffling itself in slow, rhythmic pulses. Then I'll challenge your spread, she said. 3 cards. Yours against mine. Sam's head tilted, expression unreadable. You know what happens if you lose? Yes. And if you draw the wrong card? I burn with the rest. A beat. Then Sam smiled faintly. And held out his hand. Deal. Both decks stopped shuffling. They laid themselves flat, side by side, floating midair. Rhea's deck slid out the first card on its own. Sam's did the same. They landed at the center of the room between them. Card 1, Memory. Rhea's card. The Ember. Image, a scorched field, and a girl walking away from the fire barefoot. Sam's card. The Remnant. Image, a boy made of ash reaching toward his younger self through a mirror. A whisper echoed. Memory favors the dead. Rhea gritted her teeth. Then let's go deeper. Card 2, Intention. Rhea's card flipped first. The Lock. A door with her own face carved into it, sealed with spirals. Caption, She who fears the key may still hide the truth. Sam's card. The Thread. A child tied to a woman by red string. Caption, He who was lost still remembers the path. The room groaned. Walls curled inward like scorched parchment. Voices from the mirror screamed in delight, or warning. Dead and living are bound now. The thread pulls both. Rhea's deck began to shake. It didn't like being second. Sam's eyes locked on hers. It's your hand. Cut it carefully. The deck waited. Rhea held her breath. Let her fingers hover over the stack. There were hundreds of cards she'd never seen. Some unreadable. Some whispering. Some already stained with blood. But one called to her. She didn't draw it. It rose. On its own. Glowing. And for a moment, every other card in both decks froze. Even Sam flinched. The card trembled in her palm. The title bled across the top in burning red script. The Dealer's Fall. Sam stepped back. Eyes wide. That card doesn't exist anymore. Rhea stared at it. The image shimmered constantly, unable to stabilize. One moment, a dealer being swallowed by their own deck. Next, a spiral unraveling into a black hole. Then, her own face, weeping, shattering like glass. And below it all, the caption. When the dealer refuses the deck, the game ends. Or everything ends. Rhea looked up. If I play this. Sam's voice cracked. You'll end my spread. Maybe all of them. Rhea looked at Clara. She was staring at both decks now. Crying. Breathing hard. I didn't want this. I just wanted to remember. You will, Rhea said. But we have to decide who's holding the pen. The dealer's fall floated upward. It hovered over both decks. And then split. Down the middle. One half burned. One half turned to ash. One half fell into Rhea's deck. The other, into Sam's. Both decks shuddered violently. And every card in the air burst into flame. But not destructive. Purifying. The mirror screamed. Cracks exploded across its surface. And the spiral at its center imploded, sucking in light, voice, and shadow. Rhea screamed, reached for Clara, grabbed her hand. And pulled. They landed hard. Glass and dust scattered across the floor. The mirror behind them was shattered. The deck lay in pieces. No longer pulsing. No longer whispering. No longer whole. Clara coughed. Held Rhea tight. Is it over? Rhea didn't answer. She looked down at her wrist. The spiral was gone. But in its place, a single mark. A half circle. Unfinished. Waiting. And beneath the couch, face down and forgotten, a final card whispered in silence. The remainder. Chapter 19, The Deck Inside. It had been 3 days since the mirror shattered. 3 days since the deck split. 3 days since Rhea and Clara escaped from the burned memory room with their hands, minds, and souls mostly intact. Mostly. Because Rhea hadn't slept since. Not without dreaming of cards. Not just drawings. Mechanics. Spreads. Cuts. She would wake with a hand extended, palm open, as if holding something. As if waiting to deal. Even when nothing was there. And sometimes, she could still feel the weight of the deck. Even though it sat, broken and inert, locked in a steel box beneath her bed. Or so she thought. That morning, Clara made tea. She seemed better. Calmer. The shadow of Sam had faded from her eyes, though not entirely from her heart. She no longer spoke to walls. No longer saw cards in her dreams. No longer wept when the kettle sang. Rhea wished she could say the same. She stirred her tea and blinked. A swirl of milk in the mug spun too long. Too perfect. And in the curl of cream, she saw a spiral. Not imagined. Not metaphor. A mark. And it wasn't the first one. It had begun with numbers. She started seeing 333 every time she checked a clock. Then came the whispers, just beneath the sound of her laptop fan. Soft turns of sentences like, top of the stack. Read before the page turns. One card remains. Then, 2 nights ago, the pages of her journal turned themselves. She hadn't written in weeks. But on one blank page, scrawled in her own handwriting. You carry what you cut. She tore it out, burned it. The next night, the phrase returned, on her mirror. Scrawled in condensation. You're somewhere else, Clara said, setting down her cup. Rhea blinked, grounding herself. Just tired. No cards. No whispers? Clara asked gently. Rhea forced a smile. No. All quiet. Clara nodded. But her eyes lingered a moment too long. Because she knew. Rhea was lying. That evening, Rhea took the trash out. The hallway felt longer than usual. The lights flickered, not violently, but rhythmically. As she reached the stairwell, she paused. There was something on the wall. A poster? No, a card. Taped to the peeling wallpaper like a forgotten notice. She peeled it free. No art. No number. Just one word. Unshuffled. She crumpled it. Tossed it into the dumpster outside. But when she turned around, another card was taped to her door. This one had an image. Her face turned away. Looking into a mirror she'd already broken. Title: The Return Draw. That night, she dreamed again. This time she was seated at a table in her childhood bedroom. No candles. No theater. Just a quiet, familiar place. A single card sat before her. She flipped it. Blank. Then the title appeared. The Self-Dealt. Then, a whisper, not from a voice outside her, but one inside her skull. You don't need the cards to draw anymore. You became the spread. Rhea woke up gasping. She sprinted to the steel lockbox under her bed. She opened it. The deck was still inside. Still split. Still cracked. But now, 3 new cards had formed. Ones she didn't recognize. Ones she hadn't drawn. Ones that hadn't existed before. She picked them up, hands trembling. Each was blank. Until she touched them. And then 1. The eye that reads. 2. The table without hands. 3. The spiral mirror. She dropped them. Stepped back. And whispered. It's rebuilding. And from deep within the box, beneath the shards of what once was a cursed deck, a whisper slithered out like smoke. The game doesn't end when the cards are gone. It ends when you forget how to play. Chapter 20, The One Who Folded the Spread. Rhea couldn't sleep again. It wasn't the usual nightmares. Not fire. Not mirrors. Not spirals blooming across her arms like bruises that dreamed. No. This time, the cards were quiet. And that frightened her more. Because silence meant one of 2 things. Either the deck was finally dying. Or it was waiting. She returned to Moira Vale's old reading room beneath Camden, hoping the veiled woman might know what to do. But the steel door was sealed shut. Graffiti marked it now. Red spiral spray paint. 3 words scratched in beneath. She failed too. Rhea left, heart sinking. But tucked inside the mailbox slit on the door was a single envelope. No name. Just a symbol, an inked feather, wrapped in thorns. Inside was a torn page from a book on cursed talismans, with 1 footnote circled in red. And yet, only 1 documented case exists of a deck being fully silenced. The spread was folded mid-read, against the natural order. Reader name redacted. Location sealed. Believed to reside at Inkwell Asylum. Inkwell. She'd heard the name before. A place for those who spoke in riddles. A facility for occult survivors who'd glimpsed too much. The building stood at the edge of a crumbling cliff in coastal Dorset, half hospital, half prison. Wrought iron gates. Cracked marble angels weeping at the corners. No website. No visitor hours. Just a rusted plaque. Inkwell Institute for the Disrupted Mind. Founded 1889. Abandoned 1973. Privately maintained. Rhea lied her way through the front gate, papers forged, badge borrowed, reason invented. Inside, the walls were white, but the paint bubbled like something breathing underneath. The hallways were silent. No phones. No cameras. No clocks. Just rows of rooms. Some sealed with chains. Others filled with people who whispered to chairs, drew on their arms, or stared at corners where nothing lived. She found the file by bribing a janitor. Patient 9M. Real name unknown. Known aliases: the Ink-Eater, the Folder, Ms. Dust. She was escorted by a woman in a nurse's uniform who didn't speak. Only unlocked the door. And left. Inside, a plain room. No windows. One bed. One metal desk. One figure sitting cross-legged on the floor. She was old. At least 70. Maybe older. But her hair was thick and black, braided tight with red thread. Her eyes were shut. But when Rhea stepped in, she opened them. No pupils. Only spirals. Black on black. "I wondered when you'd show up," she said. "You know who I am?" "The deck has your scent," the woman said. "Old ink. Half burned. Half born. You're carrying something that wants to deal again." Rhea sat carefully. "You silenced a deck." The woman nodded. Folded a spread mid-read. Crushed the ink before it set. "How?" The woman smiled, bittersweet. "By letting it finish me instead." "But you're alive." "Not where it matters." Rhea shivered. The woman picked up a chess piece from her desk, a black queen missing her crown. "When you play long enough, the deck starts reading you. Not just your life, but your death. And the trick is, to give it the wrong ending." "You faked your own fate?" "No. I took someone else's." The woman leaned forward. "You can't keep pieces of the deck, girl. They grow inside you. They find the cracks." Rhea showed her the 3 new cards. The woman recoiled. "You let them form inside your thoughts. Now they're self-dealing. That's the final stage." Rhea's voice broke. "Can I stop it?" "No. But you can decide how many others get pulled in when you fall." She reached into her sleeve and pulled a card Rhea had never seen before. It was blank. But the title was scrawled in dust. "The Silent Spread." The woman handed it to her. "Play this only when the deck starts using your memories. When it stops asking permission. When you start drawing while awake. And then? Then you either vanish. Or you become the next dealer." As Rhea left the room, the woman whispered behind her, almost like a blessing, or a curse. "Fold carefully, child. The next cut is always watching." Chapter 21, The Memory the Deck Played. Rhea hadn't slept in her own bed since returning from Inkwell. She couldn't. Not after what the woman with spiral eyes had said. When the deck starts using your memories, you don't draw the card. The card draws you. Instead, she slept on the couch, if it could be called sleep. Catnaps. Jolts. Whispers. Sometimes no rest at all. The box with the broken deck sat sealed beside her. But she no longer felt like its keeper. More like its host. She awoke to light spilling through the blinds. Birdsong filtered through the apartment, off-key, irregular. Like someone mimicking birdsong too precisely. Her head ached. Her mouth was dry. And on her chest, a card. Not in her hand. Not on the floor. Resting on her heart. She picked it up, hand trembling. This one was already face-up. The illustration was so personal, so specific, it stole her breath. A teenage girl standing on a bridge in the pouring rain, holding a notebook above her head. Her reflection in the water below was screaming. Rhea knew that bridge. She knew that night. She'd never told anyone about it. But the card had drawn it exactly. The title? The Forgotten Fall. She stood in the kitchen, clutching the card. Her mug of coffee steamed untouched beside her. She remembered the night on the bridge, her parents fighting, her journal soaked with rain, the way she'd leaned a little too far over the railing and thought, would it really matter if I let go? But she hadn't. And the moment had vanished into silence. She had buried it. Until now. Until the deck unearthed it. Clara entered quietly, robe wrapped tight, concern creasing her brow. You look like you've seen a ghost. Worse, Rhea whispered. I saw myself. She handed the card to Clara. Clara studied it carefully. This isn't from the deck. No, Rhea said. It's from me. It's using my past now. To do what? To rewrite the present. To bend who I am. Clara's voice dropped. Why? Rhea stared out the window. Because it wants a dealer it can control. One shaped from pain. The spiral on her wrist had faded days ago. But now, new symbols appeared. Numbers. Dates. She recognized one. The date her best friend left town without saying goodbye. Another, her father's funeral. And another. The day she first picked up the cursed deck. Each number shimmered briefly, then vanished into her skin like ink into paper. The deck was cataloging her life. Turning it into a spread. And then cutting it. A noise from the hallway. She opened the door. Another card lay on the welcome mat. Face down. But humming. She picked it up. Turned it. And her knees buckled. The classroom. A teacher yelling. Rhea at 12 years old, standing frozen as the class laughed. A report torn in half. A line of red ink across the top. No one asked for this. She fell back against the doorframe. Her breath shallow. It's playing my guilt, she whispered. It's turning me into its own story. She stumbled back inside. Opened the steel lockbox. The deck was still there, fractured, inert. But a new card had formed at the top of the pile. Blank. Except for a title burned into the edge. The narrative. She reached for it. But her hand passed through. Like it wasn't meant to be held. It was being written. By her. She staggered to her journal, one she hadn't written in since the spread began. The pages were blank. Until she touched the cover. Then words began to write themselves. In her own handwriting. The dealer does not cut the cards. She cuts herself. Into chapters. Into scenes. Into endings. And below it. The deck is just the mirror. But now, you're the one holding the pen. As Rhea stared at the empty page, a final message shimmered into view, one she had never written, but one the deck had always known. You will deal one final spread. And the story will end. With you. Chapter 22, The Warning Outside the Game. The page stared back at her. Words etched in ink she never wrote. You will deal one final spread. And the story will end. With you. Rhea shut the journal and backed away slowly, her pulse hammering in her ears. The room was still. Too still. Even the ticking of the kitchen clock had stopped. No birdsong. No wind. No whispers. And then, a knock. 3 times. Soft. Measured. Not the deck. Something else. She approached the door cautiously, expecting another card beneath it. But this time, there was an envelope. Real. Ordinary. Sealed with wax. But not spiral-shaped wax. A symbol she'd never seen before. A broken feather, sliced clean down the spine. She opened it. Inside, a single card. But not tarot. A playing card. The Joker. And across the face of it, written in shaky script. The deck doesn't like what I know. Meet me at the location below. Before it finishes writing you. Below that, a GPS coordinate. A time, midnight. And one final line. Come alone. Or not at all. The location was a crumbling roadside motel at the edge of an abandoned highway an hour outside the city. Half the rooms boarded. Half overrun by ivy. One buzzing neon sign barely clinging to life. Moonlight Arms. Room 6. She parked beneath a flickering lamppost and waited until exactly 12 a.m. The moment the clock on her phone ticked forward, room 6's door creaked open. A voice, raspy and genderless, whispered. You were expected. She stepped inside. The figure sat cross-legged on the bed, surrounded by dozens of open notebooks, torn playing cards, defaced tarot illustrations, and what looked like blueprints of the Devil's Theater drawn from memory. They wore a gas station jacket and gloves, as if touching anything with bare skin might invite it in. Their face was blurred by shadow, not supernaturally, just obscured, like a witness refusing to look into the light. You're her, they said. The half-dealer. The one the deck didn't mean to keep. Who are you? The figure chuckled darkly. A reader who refused. Before it had a name. I learned the rules by breaking them. I stayed alive by never playing. But you've touched it. Once, they said. And that's one time too many. They handed Rhea a journal. Its cover was scorched, pages brittle. Inside were dozens of cards. Drawn by hand. But different. Not from her deck. Not from any deck. These are from the versions the deck burned before yours, they said. Versions? The deck isn't singular, they whispered. It's a pattern. A curse with memory. It repeats. And every time it begins again, it improves. Learns. Shapes the next dealer faster. They turned a page and showed Rhea a sketch. It was her face. Not drawn recently. Dated 6 years ago. It knew you long before you touched it. That's not possible. It doesn't wait for permission. It drafts its next voice before the last has even burned out. They reached beneath the bed and retrieved a thin sheet of glass. Pressed between 2 layers was a sealed card, shimmering with living ink. This card never made it into your spread, they said. It's a myth. But I stole it before it was placed. Rhea leaned closer. The cut line. It showed a reader with scissors, slicing the ribbon of fate before the first card was dealt. The subtitle read. You can't end the game once it starts. You can only stop it from beginning again. The figure looked her dead in the eye. Burn the heart of the deck. Not the cards. Not the box. The moment. The place where it was born. Where? They handed her a final page. Hand-sketched coordinates. A place in the woods. No town nearby. Just 2 words scratched at the bottom. Dealer's route. As Rhea stepped back into the night, the Joker card in her pocket vibrated softly, and a new message burned across its face. Hurry. The story's almost done writing you in. Chapter 23, The Route of the Deck. The forest wasn't on any modern map. No trailhead. No name. Just coordinates scratched into a journal that burned at the edges as if trying to erase itself. Rhea parked at the side of a crumbling road that had been eaten by vines and silence. The sun was setting fast, and the tree line ahead seemed to lean inward like 1,000 sentinels made of bark and memory. The heart of the deck, she whispered. Burn the place it was born. She carried with her the broken deck, still fractured. The Joker card from the uninvited. The silent spread card, gifted by the veiled woman at Inkwell. A lighter. And fear that didn't sit in her chest, but coiled beneath her skin like a card waiting to be turned. The trees closed behind her after 20 steps. Sound vanished. Not just birdsong. All sound. Her own breath barely echoed. Her footsteps fell silent. Not muffled, erased. She checked her phone. Dead. Not powered down. Just, blank. The screen glowed, but showed nothing. The forest had no wind, but her hair moved like she was walking through water. It took her nearly 30 minutes to find the clearing. And when she did, the world changed. It was small. Perfectly circular. The trees stopped precisely at its edge, as if trimmed by divine hands. At the center, a pedestal of charred stone. Spiral carved. Blackened like bone burned too long. Surrounding it were cards pinned to trees with nails of rust. Some tarot. Some playing. Some blank. All of them wept ink. And one tree had her name carved into it. Not fresh. A decade old at least. Beneath it, in a different hand. The next voice always returns home. She approached the pedestal cautiously. A deck sat on it. Not hers. Older. Its cards cracked and stitched. Some glowed. Others pulsed faintly like veins. And beside the deck, a photograph. Water damaged. But unmistakable. The veiled woman from Inkwell. Younger. Smiling. Holding the very same deck in her hands. Behind her, the forest. Behind her, this place. Rhea picked up the top card. It didn't resist. It didn't hum. It begged. Title. The seed. The art, a hand planting a card in the dirt. The tree that grew bore faces instead of leaves. A wind returned suddenly, sharp, slicing. And with it, voices. Not whispers. Not one. Dozens. Spoken from the trees, the cards, the pedestal, the stones. The game began here. The first dealer spilled her blood on hollow soil. The spread feeds roots. Roots feed memory. Memory deals the next name. Rhea staggered back. The broken deck in her bag shuddered. Then slid out on its own. Card by card. Each one spinning through the air. They formed a ring around her feet. Each faced upward. Each now bore her name. A final card rose from the pedestal. Blank. Then, slowly, the image formed. Rhea. Standing in this clearing. Arms raised. Deck split in two. The forest burning around her. And in the background. A shadowed figure, faceless, watching. The devil? No. Her reflection. But older. Mouth stitched shut. Hands covered in ink. Title. The author. Beneath it. All dealers fall. But some learn to write the ending first. She dropped all her cards into the center of the clearing. Poured the oil she brought over them. Over the pedestal. Over the carved root where her name bled down the bark. Lit the match. And spoke aloud. I fold the spread. I silence the voice. I burn the root. The flame caught. But it didn't roar. It whispered. As if the deck itself exhaled. And just before the fire consumed the final card, it flipped itself one last time, revealing a new title that made her blood run cold. The Ash Dealer. Her face. Her eyes. Still watching. Chapter 24, the card already drawn. The fire should have ended it. The pedestal had crumbled. The carved tree had fallen. The forest had gone silent, not the cursed kind of silence, but the heavy hush of something finished. Rhea had stayed until dawn. Watched the ashes settle. Watched the cards curl into embers. And she believed, for a moment, that it was over. That she had burned the root. That the story had ended with her. But stories don't end in fire. They end when no one remembers to read them. She drove back in silence. No music. No whispers. No cards slipping beneath her seat or appearing in the glove box. The sky was clean. The sun, ordinary. When she arrived at her apartment, Clara was gone. She hadn't said she would leave. No note. No bag missing. Just gone. And sitting in the center of the coffee table. A single card. It wasn't charred. It wasn't blank. It wasn't hers. But it pulsed faintly, alive with ink that hadn't been inked yet. Rhea's breath caught. The illustration formed as she looked at it. Clara, walking down a fog-covered street. A smile on her face. In her hand? A familiar black box. Velvet-lined. Unburned. And on her wrist? A fresh spiral. Title. The next hand. Rhea collapsed into the armchair, eyes wide. She wasn't supposed to be part of it anymore. She had pulled Clara out. Broken the mirror. Saved her from the proxy card. But the deck had been inside her longer than she realized. It didn't need to whisper. Not anymore. It only needed to wait. To watch. To let someone else choose to draw. The card on the table began to unfold, edges lifting, bending open like origami. Inside it, 3 miniatures. 3 new cards. Forming a spread Rhea had never seen before. 1, the carrier, Clara, walking barefoot, trailing spiral vines from her footsteps. 2, the bloom, a sprouting tree made of cards, each leaf a reflection of Clara's face. 3, the redealer, a woman holding out the box with both hands, smiling with no mouth. She's not being possessed, Rhea whispered. She's volunteering. She found a note under the mug Clara always used. Tucked carefully into the coaster. The handwriting was steady. Gentle. Rhea, you broke the story. But that doesn't destroy the storybook. And I can't live in the aftermath of someone else's ending. So I'm starting a new chapter. My own. Don't try to find me. Don't try to stop me. You burned the root. But I kept one seed. The last card formed at the base of the spread, blinking like a heartbeat. Rhea picked it up. It was heavy. Colder than the rest. The illustration? 2 women, seated across from each other. No table. No deck. Just a mirror between them. One looked like Rhea. The other, Clara. Both smiling. Both reaching. Both fading. Title. The final cut. And beneath it. Every dealer deals once. Every voice writes twice. Every silence echoes. And from the windowsill, a whisper blew in with the morning breeze, curling through the apartment like ink on the wind. The deck is ash. But the game is memory. And memory grows back. Chapter 25, The Folded Ending. Rhea sat in silence. The card, the final cut, rested in her hands like it weighed more than paper should. Maybe it wasn't paper at all anymore. Maybe it was the last piece of memory the deck hadn't devoured. Outside, the morning sun was rising. The world was moving again. Birds. Wind. Sirens. Life. But inside the apartment, it was still. Stuck in a breath that had never exhaled. And Rhea knew why. The deck hadn't ended. Not really. It had simply passed on. She laid the final cut card on the table. 3 others rose from the broken deck box on their own. Not conjured. Not played. Just there. Waiting. The spread formed without her hands. 1, the voice, a woman walking away from fire, deck burning in her hands. 2, the echo, a spiral carved into sand, washed away by a wave, then redrawn by an unseen hand. 3, the seedling, a single card, buried in soil. Above it, a hand not planting, but reaching back down to pull it out. Each card bore no name. No image at first. But the longer she stared, the clearer they became. All of them were Clara. The spiral reappeared on Rhea's wrist. Not ink this time. A shadow beneath the skin, pulsing faintly like a vein. It didn't hurt. It didn't hum. It simply reminded her. You are still part of the story. Even now. Even after the fire. Even after the silence. And suddenly, she saw it clearly. She could go after Clara. Track her down. Find the deck. Try to end it again. But what would it cost? Her mind? Her freedom? Clara? The game didn't want to end. It wanted to survive. And stories like this didn't end in flames. They ended in choices. She took a clean page from her journal. The last one. And she began to write. Clara. You chose the next page. I choose to close the book. I'm not coming after you. Not because I don't care. But because if I do, I give the deck a sequel. I won't draw another card. Not even for you. Especially not for you. Because the story feeds on love wrapped in sacrifice. But if you ever want to stop, if you ever want silence, find me. I'll be somewhere quiet. Living like I never knew what it meant to hold fate in my hands. I fold my story here. She signed it. Tucked it into the final cut card. Set both on the table. And walked away. The air shifted once, like a sigh of wind through paper. The cards on the table curled slowly. The spiral on the wall faded to dust. The shadows under the furniture blinked once, then vanished. And the final cut card cracked. Just a hairline. But enough. The deck had been denied its final draw. In a park outside the city, beneath a copper street lamp, a woman sat alone on a bench. She had no deck. No cards. No spiral. But a stranger sat beside her and offered a small black box. Velvet lined. Familiar. Too familiar. The woman looked at it. Then smiled. And said, "No, thank you. I already folded." Back in her apartment, sealed in a drawer no one would open again, a final card pulsed once in the dark before curling into ash. The dealer's end. Every story ends somewhere. But this one ends with a choice. And she made it.
The story may end here. But the darkness never sleeps. Like this video to keep the shadows stirring. Share your whispers in the comments. Your voice shapes the next nightmare. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Gothic Hour Stories and Mysteries, where every tale lingers and every soul leaves a mark. The Gothic Hour awaits.